one could have anticipated that a nurse with years of experience working in a hospice, a place where individuals spend their final days when no further medical help is possible, would make such a startling statement that captured public attention. She revealed the following: "Even in today's modern world, the topic of life after death remains something people often avoid discussing. However, I feel compelled to share the extraordinary experiences I have witnessed. I do this to provide comfort to those who have lost loved ones, helping them understand that their family and friends haven't ceased to exist but continue their journey in the spiritual realm. Due to my professional duties, I have been present for hundreds of deaths. These moments, often filled with deep mystery, have given me the chance to observe what truly happens to a person in their final moments. I can say with complete certainty that during these profound moments, a sort of veil between our world and another is lifted. For the dying, what they experience brings them peace in most cases. While some believe in the afterlife and others do not, for me there is no question. I don't need to believe in life after death. I know it exists." The nurse behind these revelations is Julie McFadden, a hospice nurse who has frequently encountered extraordinary occurrences during her work in palliative care. Julie openly admitted to witnessing supernatural phenomena on several occasions during the process of human death. Julie has described countless experiences that she considers to be evidence of the continuation of existence beyond physical death. One of the most striking accounts she shares involved a young man in his late 20s who was in hospice care due to an incurable illness. Throughout his time in hospice, the young man was deeply afraid of dying and often spoke to Julie about his fears. On the day he passed away, Julie was not present at the hospice, but while driving, she suddenly experienced an overwhelming sensation, almost as if the young man's voice was speaking directly to her. She felt a message conveyed to her that said, "Oh, if I only knew that death happens this way, I would not be afraid of her coming." Moments later, Julie received a call confirming his passing. This experience solidified Julie's belief that there is a spiritual connection between the living and the dying, and that death is not something to fear. As a hospice nurse, Julie has observed recurring phenomena in the final moments of her patients' lives. These include sudden bursts of energy or lucidity, a phenomenon commonly known as a surge that occurs days or hours before death. Patients often eat, speak, or interact in ways that had seemed impossible due to their deteriorating condition. Julie has also witnessed her patients describing vivid visions of deceased loved ones or other spiritual figures. Many patients have made statements that seem to predict the exact time of their death. In some cases, they stretch their arms upward, a gesture Julie describes as though they are reaching out to someone or something unseen. Julie's accounts resonate with the experiences of other hospice workers, nurses, and doctors. David Kessler, a renowned expert on death and dying, has shared similar stories. He recounted the experience of a patient named Dora, who was terminally ill and often spoke of seeing her late mother dressed in radiant light. David observed that many patients describe the presence of loved ones who have passed on as though they are waiting to guide them into the next phase of existence. David has remarked, "Our parents are waiting for us on the other side to facilitate our transition to another plane of existence." Barbara Carnes, another hospice nurse and author, has documented similar phenomena. She has observed that many patients nearing death report seeing their mothers, regardless of their age or life circumstances. One of her patients, who had been restless and agitated, suddenly smiled and whispered, "Mom, I'm so glad to see you," just before passing away. Barbara believes this reflects a deep connection to the nurturing presence of a parent, which provides comfort in the transition from life to death. She has said, It's as if mothers, who brought us into this world, guide us into the next. Another powerful story comes from a woman who, in her final days, spoke of hearing angelic singing and feeling the touch of angelic wings. She described the music as unlike anything she had ever heard on earth, and the sensation brought her immense peace. This experience left her caregivers with a sense of awe and wonder, reinforcing the belief that there is beauty and serenity in the process of dying. One man nearing death spoke to his nurse, saying, "It's time for us to say goodbye. Thank you for taking care of me. But now I'm going home. It's so beautiful. There are lights and clouds everywhere." Hours later, he passed away peacefully. Another patient, a 52-year-old woman who had been terrified of dying, began speaking with her deceased father in her final days. She found comfort in his presence and told her nurse, "It's okay. I'm not scared anymore." These moments highlight the spiritual and emotional transformations that often occur during the dying process. Professionals in the field of hospice care have shared insights into these phenomena, exploring biological, psychological, and spiritual explanations. Barbara Carnesi outlines three primary theories. The biological theory suggests that changes in the brain, such as a lack of oxygen, could cause hallucinations. The psychological theory posits that the mind creates comforting visions as a defense mechanism to cope with the fear of death. The spiritual theory argues that these experiences represent the existence of the soul and an afterlife. While scientific explanations attempt to account for these phenomena, the consistent accounts from hospice workers and dying individuals provide a compelling argument for a spiritual dimension to life's final moments. David Kessler has observed that in his years of working with the dying, no one has ever said, "Nothing is happening. I see nothing. I am entering nothing." Instead, the dying often describe vivid and extraordinary experiences that suggest a continuation of existence. He has said, "If death is merely the end, why do those standing at its door describe something so extraordinary?" These observations challenge the notion of death as a definitive end and invite us to consider the possibility of a greater spiritual reality. One recurring theme across many hospice nurses and doctors' testimonies is that patients nearing death often speak of seeing deceased loved ones, angels, or even divine figures. These visions, while frequently dismissed as hallucinations, have been documented too consistently to ignore. For instance, Nurse Trudy Harris, author of Glimpses of Heaven, True Stories of Hope and Peace at the End of Life's Journey, recounted numerous stories of patients seeing in the afterlife moments before passing. In one case, a terminally ill woman described seeing a field of flowers so vibrant and alive that they seemed to be glowing. She repeatedly told her nurse, "They're waiting for me. I can see them." Just minutes before she passed, the woman looked toward the corner of the room and smiled, as if acknowledging someone had come to guide her. Similarly, a doctor working in palliative care once shared the story of a man named Henry who had battled cancer for years. During his final days, Henry began describing a beautiful, warm light and the presence of his late sister, whom he had deeply missed. Despite the pain he had endured, his last hours were peaceful, and he told the doctor with conviction, "I'm going home." These moments offered comfort not only to Henry, but also to his grieving family, who felt reassured by his serene departure. While personal experiences often carry the most emotional weight, scientific curiosity about near-death and end-of-life experiences has also grown significantly in recent decades. The University of Virginia's Division of Perceptual Studies, DOPS, has been a leader in researching consciousness after death. Dr. Bruce Grayson, a psychiatrist and researcher, has studied thousands of near-death experiences, NDEs, and has noted striking patterns. In his book, After a Doctor Explores What Near-Death Experiences Reveal About Life and Beyond, Grayson recounts patients describing profound peace, encounters with deceased loved ones, and visions of a radiant light. One of Grayson's patients, a man named Jeff, experienced cardiac arrest and was clinically dead for several minutes. After being resuscitated, Jeff described floating above his body and seeing the frantic efforts of doctors trying to save him. He also claimed to have met his grandmother, who had died years earlier, and felt her warmth and reassurance. Despite being a skeptic before his cardiac event, Jeff emerged from the experience with a renewed belief in the continuity of life after death. Nurse Sally Taylor, who has worked in hospice care for over 20 years, shared a particularly poignant story about a 6-year-old boy named Jamie. Jamie was terminally ill with leukemia and, during his last days, often spoke of a man in white who would visit him at night. Jamie described this figure as comforting and kind, telling him that he would not feel pain anymore once he crossed a beautiful bridge. The night before Jamie passed, he told his mother, "The man in white says it's time to go, but I'll see you again." Jamie's story left an indelible mark on Sally, who said, "It's moments like these that make you realize death is not the end, but a transition." Similarly, hospice nurse Martha Jennings described the experience of a 92-year-old woman named Eleanor, who had been unresponsive for days. Moments before she died, Eleanor suddenly opened her eyes, smiled, and said, "Jack, you're here." Jack had been her husband, who had passed away 30 years earlier. The clarity and joy in Eleanor's expression convinced Martha that Eleanor had indeed been greeted by her beloved spouse. Many patients experience a sudden burst of energy in their final hours or days. These energy surges can include talking, eating, or even joking after days or weeks of weakness. Nurse Julie McFadden noted that while these surges can give families hope, they often indicate that death is near. The most commonly reported phenomenon involves seeing deceased loved ones, religious figures, or beautiful landscapes. Patients often speak of these visions as comforting and reassuring. Some individuals intuitively know when they will die. They may say goodbyes or express readiness to depart. One hospice patient, a former pilot, told his nurse, "I'm ready for my final flight. The runway is clear." He passed away hours later. For many, these experiences bring a profound sense of peace, reducing the fear of death. Barbara Carnes, author of Gone From My Sight, emphasized that these moments help both patients and families find closure. Dr. Raymond Moody, often credited as the pioneer of NDE research and author of Life After Life, once stated, "Death is merely a doorway to another dimension of existence. The countless stories I've heard from patients assure me that life continues beyond our physical bodies." Nurse Maggie Callahan, co-author of Final Gifts, remarked, "The dying have a unique wisdom that the living often overlook. They teach us that death is not an end, but a transformation, a reunion with the divine." Beliefs about the afterlife vary across cultures, but often align with the phenomena reported by hospice workers. In ancient Egyptian mythology, death was viewed as a transition to the afterlife, guided by deities like Anubis. Similarly, Tibetan Buddhism describes the bardo, an intermediate state where the soul transitions to its next life. Indigenous cultures, such as Native American tribes, often believe in the presence of spirit guides who assist the dying. These beliefs resonate with the experiences described by hospice workers, suggesting that the phenomena observed at the end of life are deeply rooted in human spirituality. Linda, a hospice nurse, once cared for a retired firefighter named Robert. After battling a long illness, Robert became bedridden in his final weeks. One night, he called Linda to his bedside and shared an extraordinary vision. "I see a tunnel of light," he said, his voice filled with wonder. "At the end, there's my old station chief and the crew who've passed before me." Robert had been a lifelong skeptic. believing only in what he could see and touch. But as he described the radiant warmth and his friends waiting for him, he grew tearful. He passed away the following morning with a smile on his face, leaving Linda deeply moved. In another case, hospice nurse Kevin shared the story of a Vietnam veteran named Sam. As Sam's condition deteriorated, he often spoke of hearing the laughter of his comrades who had died in combat decades earlier. "They're calling me," he told Kevin one evening. In his final moments, Sam raised his hand in a salute, murmured, "I'm coming, boys," and took his last breath. Kevin reflected, it was as if Sam was reporting back to the brothers he had lost, and he left this world with dignity and peace. The Awareness during resuscitation study, led by Dr. Sam Parnia, explored near-death experiences, NDEs, in cardiac arrest patients. Researchers documented cases where patients reported seeing and hearing events in the operating room that were later verified as accurate. These veridical experiences challenge the assumption that NDEs are purely hallucinations caused by brain activity. In one case, a patient described specific details of the resuscitation process, including the presence of a blue cart and a nurse dropping an instrument. The accuracy of his account, despite being clinically dead at the time, has intrigued researchers and opened new avenues for exploring consciousness. Recent studies have detected surges of gamma brainwaves in dying individuals, suggesting heightened mental activity as the brain shuts down. Some scientists theorize that this could explain vivid visions and spiritual experiences during NDEs. However, others argue that the nature of these experiences goes beyond physical explanations, especially when patients report events occurring far from their physical bodies. As Barbara Carnes mentioned, when patients are nearing the end of their journey in this physical world, there is always someone or some entity present to guide and welcome them to the other side, providing them with a sense of hope. At such moments, it becomes clear that a person is spending their final hours on Earth. I believe that the transition for these individuals into another realm is eased and filled with minimal fear. These experiences and stories reinforce my belief that there is more to existence than our material world. They give me comfort and hope that when my own time comes, someone dear to me will appear to help guide me through this profound transition into the otherworldly space. After all, death is frightening enough without that reassurance. So having someone meet us with tenderness and love would be a beautiful comfort. Thank you for watching this video all the way through. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Your support is truly important. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.